This is the Code, Deploy, Go Live podcast, episode 15 with Julie Turner and Andrew Connell. This episode is available as a video on our YouTube channel, which is linked in the show notes. In this episode, Julie and Andrew will discuss the overall state of the Microsoft Graph SDKs with the intent of sharing a complete picture of the currently available libraries and what languages are supported. Recorded live September 18th, 2025. Hey, Andrew. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing okay, Julie. How are you?
Yeah, well, not bad. Finally-ish over my cult, so, heading in the right direction. How about you? What are you doing? What you up to? Running, as usual?
Yes, I am. I started using I guess like it's an app that's helping with like AI-based coaching, and I'm really liking it. It took some time to get used to it, but it's definitely pushing me beyond the comfort zone that I usually am in, and I'm realizing. I mean, I knew that I had my own like self-directed training. I knew I was missing some stuff that could make it better, and this is doing a good job adding it. I like it, like coaches me as I'm running. It gives me some pretty brutal feedback at times too. Like this morning when I got up after doing interval run yesterday morning, and it's like, so we've adjusted your plan. So it's interesting. I'm going to change what I was going to say before. It's interesting because what I normally do is I'm used to saying, this is my target for this pace, this half marathon. This is how I'm going to train to get there. And I take a bunch of things that like some well-known running coaches post on their sites and stuff, and do a little bit of like little tweaking here and there to try and add stuff. And it's usually pretty good, like really big, nasty Excel sheet or Google sheet that schedules the whole thing out. The approach that this one has is that you don't tell it what your target is. You tell it what you can do, and it focuses on steady progress and getting faster, getting stronger, improving your performance. And then it tells you, like, based on how you're doing, here's what your expected pace is going to end up being, or your pace range. So you give it your pace from like your last race or something like that? Is that what you're saying? Or it basically says, so it says, what is your anticipated finish time if you did a half marathon right now? Now, with that being said,
okay,
you don't maintain, generally, at least for me, you don't maintain that fitness year round. Especially in Florida, I can't maintain that because you can only do like half marathons. I think healthy, you can only really do half marathons and marathons during the what the rest of the world calls the winter months. What we call winter, but everyone else would look at us and go like, that's like a light summer. Like right now, like I could do 7, 8, 9 miles right now. But generally my long runs are like 6 to 7. So I say like, okay, if I was fully trained, this is what I would do if I was doing a half marathon today. So of course I did it. And, I feel like I'm doing okay with the training. And then it kind of, this morning, it's like, we made an update. And it goes, here, you are about 2 minutes slower because you've been missing your, intervals pretty consistently over the last week and a half. So this is what your new anticipated pace is. I'm like, shit. All right, cool. Got it. I need to get on this. So it's nice because it's like a little bit more accountability. It's hard right now to try and fit in between teaching a workshop like I did the last 2 weeks. I'm like trying to get up at 4 a.m. to get more work done, go to bed a little bit earlier. A couple nights ago, I laid in bed for like 30 minutes, for 3 hours trying to get to sleep. Ended up not even going into it intentionally, but I pulled an all-nighter. I finally got up after about 4.5 hours, like, forget this. I'm going to get some work done, maybe take a nap before my workshop. I went a full day, no sleep at all. Somehow was not absolutely dead, but yeah. But that's the big thing. So, now it's looking forward to doing this podcast with you. And right after this, I jump on a plane or rush to the airport, jump on a plane and go speak at the M365 Community Days. M365 Twin Cities Community Days or whatever they call it on Friday, tomorrow, September 19th. So
nice. When I said running, I actually meant you're running to the airport, but that's okay. I liked hearing about your AI thing. That was interesting.
If anybody's interested, the app that I use is called Runna, Runna. It's a link to Strava, or Strava is involved with it. So it's really good. I do like it. So, but anyway, yes, I'm doing two kinds of running. Today I've been trying to get my work done before I have to get on the airport and literally run to the airport. Well,
we were joking because I do it's not AI based, but I have like The Peloton app has a way where you can say this is what I'm targeting, trying to do, and then it puts together like your workout plan for the week, and it's generally the same every week. Like I have my days that I do the things that I do, and I try, because I'm type A, and I will overwork myself without really thinking about it. So my priority is to every morning go, yes, that's what I should do. Please check in with yourself and see if you should do it for your overall health. Like, did you sleep enough? Prioritize sleep, prioritize, food, good food consumption, prioritize all these other things before trying to kill myself with a workout. So that is the thing that I always have to like, am I stressed? Is this really the workout I should be doing, kind of thing? So I hear you about that thing. And I did a strength training workout. We were laughing earlier because I can't, without shaking, lift my coffee mug. So that's how I feel this morning.
Yeah, I was like, oh, hey, Julie, I mean, that much espresso in that size cup is a lot. I mean, I like coffee, but that's a lot.
Decaf.
So you were talking about that, got totally off the topic of like what we normally do on our podcast, but are you familiar with those Oura rings? Have you seen those?
Yeah, I've heard that about them. Yeah, and I know some people that have them, but I haven't.
I can't remember how I got one, but like I had something where I was like, oh, cool, this would be a cool present for myself. Use this money for this. It was found money. And I got one and I kept it for as long as you're allowed before you have to send it back and get your money back. I wanted to use it because I know friends that use it. They told me about like specifically the aspects you just mentioned. So you can tell when you look at it, it shows you what I can't remember exactly what it was phrased as, but you can tell what your body's, where you're at after a night's sleep or from previous stuff you've done. Mm-hmm. And it can look at like the biometrics, some biometrics numbers like pulse or whatever. And it can tell like, you can look at it and basically tell you like going, today's a day you can really lean into stuff, or today's a day you shouldn't really overexert yourself. Because your body's not really you're not in a good position where you're going to successfully do that and you're actually going to set yourself back. I did like that aspect of it. I really like the ring, and
you can do that with data. The Apple Watch and an app called Wellatory. I tried it for a little while. I didn't feel like I was using it enough to pay for it, but the app was very cool in that it took metrics from the Apple Watch and gave you way more insights to it. And this was this might be 2 years ago. So it would not surprise me if it had even advanced even more from what it was doing. That was above and beyond what Apple Health gives you. So you might look into that.
That's interesting. I'm looking at it now. That's really interesting. Okay, cool.
So there we are. We've traded apps. I won't be running anytime soon, though.
I was going to this weekend. I was like, oh, look, I'm in Minneapolis. It's a low of 52 degrees Fahrenheit. I was like, oh my God, Perfect. That sounds awesome. And it's like 90% chance of rain. And I'm like, no, not going to do that. So anyway, awesome.
All right. Should we get into the episode?
Let's dive in. What are we talking about today, Julie?
All right. So
you were at the driver's seat. I'm going to be the navigator.
So my thought process was, when I was working on what I thought I wanted to cover for this episode, is that I had made a public comment, and we'll link it in the show notes. And I think we actually linked it in the last show notes too, but I had made a public comment on LinkedIn about, sort of an open question. Are Microsoft Graph typings, meaning for the TypeScript, JavaScript / Node.js development, no longer maintained? And it was sort of an open question. And it was, there was some commentary about how some things had been deprecated and that there's new potential things coming, but they're in preview and they're not GA, et cetera, et cetera. And it left me feeling like, what the heck is the state of the union as far as the Graph SDKs go? I tend, at this point, to lean pretty heavily into only using the TypeScript, JavaScript Graph and interacting with Graph in that way, because we had talked about this before. I used to write all my Azure function server-based type things in C#, and write all client-side code in TypeScript, JavaScript. And I had since switched, right? So I'm writing everything in Node.js. So it's more important to me than ever to be, sort of know what's going on in the ecosystem. Now, that said, I also help co-maintain a SDK library called PnPJS it's a TypeScript library for accessing the Microsoft Graph and the SharePoint REST APIs in a type-safe way with IntelliSense sort of built into that because it's a fluent API implementation of the RESTful endpoint. So I tend to always use that, but I like to know what is official for Microsoft. And it was getting pretty damn confusing. So, all right. So I spent some time, I went through them all, and I thought it would be good if I just went through all of them, sort of gave a state of the union on what we have. And then, if we have opinions, if you have opinions or whatever, you certainly could jump in. So
actually, can I ask you one question? So
yeah,
what was the thing, you mentioned that LinkedIn post. I'm familiar with it, but
yes,
I'm wondering, what was the thing that caused you to what was the point of the post, and what was the thing that kicked this off for you? Let's catch people up.
Good point. And I definitely forgot to say that. Okay. So in maintaining that PnPJS library, we do this Fluent API for all the graph endpoints. But what we do is take a dependency on the Microsoft Graph types Node.js package, which has all the typings for all the return objects or the objects inside of the graph. So if you want to have a user, or if you want to have a group, or if you want to have a team, or a chat message or whatever, there's a definition of what that object looks like. And so we take a dependency on that in PnPJS because, why reinvent the wheel when those typings are being provided by Microsoft and should be kept up to date so that as objects change on the Microsoft Graph, like they add a new property to user or whatever, those properties would be there. And since the API call usually just sends an object and retrieves an object, it doesn't particularly usually care what's inside of the object. That's a very good way to sort of interface the two things, right? So PnPJS can make the call, but as far as what the type of the object you're sending or receiving, depending on the call you're making, those typings should come from Microsoft, or so we felt. Well, we're working on version 5, which is a major update. But in general, what we tend to do when things get super stable, which version 4 is, we basically have no open issues of any kind, no bugs that are being reported. We get questions a lot and issues raised in the issues list, but nobody is really finding bugs anymore. So we're not doing a ton with that. But we do revision the library every month as long as there's either a package update or documentation updates that need to go. And so I tend to take that task on, and every month I'm going to look at, what packages are updated. And it finally dawned on me that the graph typings hadn't been updated in a while. And I looked back and I'm like, this has been almost 2 years. We're literally at about 1.75 years. In November, essentially, it will be 2 years where that typings library hasn't changed. There's no friggin' way the graph endpoints haven't changed. So that doesn't really particularly make any sense. And so then that opens up a whole can of worms. What are we, you're now going to get an object back. It's not going to be typed properly. So you either have to extend the interface or you know what I mean? You're sort of left in limbo with that. So it was definitely what's going on? And it was sort of asked rhetorically. I kind of knew that it wasn't being maintained, but, I felt like we should really address this and make it public. Hey, let's get some eyeballs on the fact that this is not being maintained anymore.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I've never understood too why they even, if you already have a JavaScript SDK, why in the world do we have why do they put their typings in a totally separate package? I mean, when you are probably writing the SDK using TypeScript, I know they do a lot of code gen stuff, but the typings should be in the main one. You don't have to use them, but now so many editors, even if you're just doing JavaScript, so many editors leverage those type declarations that they usually just included right in the same package, and that all those typing libraries or type declaration libraries that were created were really just like stopgap or bridges until the library started including them in there. So I've always felt it weird that they did that anyway, but I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you. I think it was probably legacy to some case, because it was definitely, years now ago when TypeScript was more in its infancy, in the sense that it wasn't being used as broadly. I definitely think you saw all the typings for all of the libraries be in a separate package. And there are still some that I use regularly, Lodash being one of them, that has their typings in a separate file. So I think legacy wise, it makes sense, but certainly it's an outdated pattern. I don't disagree with that.
Okay.
All right. So there is a root GitHub repository, github.com/Microsoft Graph, that has 33 packages in it. And in those packages are all the different SDK libraries for all the languages that they support, plus a bunch of other stuff. And I'm not going to go into the other stuff part. I'm only really sort of mindful or concerned about the publicly supported SDKs. So, excuse me, there is using the official Microsoft docs. That's what I felt like was the right way to go about it. So and the way I usually get there is just graph.microsoft.com, but that takes you to a Learn page. So it's just a quick shortcut from my perspective. So I go to graph.microsoft.com, you get into the documentation, and then you can go and it'll give you a list of all the SDKs that are available. So I went through that list. So starting at the top, C# or .NET, that was updated 4 days ago based on the time when I was looking at it, and it regularly releases every month. So I think from my perspective, I'd consider the C# library pretty stable, and it doesn't look like they're doing anything to stop working on it or whatever. So I believe from my perspective that's being maintained.
Yeah, it does look like that.
The next in line is a CLI. So that one is interestingly marked as publicly archived. So, and it hasn't been updated in quite a while. It was 15 months ago, back in June of 24 is when it was released last. Before that, it had regular monthly releases. So given the fact that it's not being released anymore and it's marked as publicly archived, I would say this one is fully deprecated and probably should be something that you move away from.
It actually, I think, I can't remember exactly when we covered it, it was recent, but late August of 2025, they announced the retirement of the Graph CLI. So you're safe. You're pretty safe on that.
Yep, I think I remembered that as well. So cool. We're all on the same page.
Yep.
Then they have a PowerShell module. This one, when it first came out, I was a little befuddled by, but I guess now I see that it makes things a little bit easier for people. And when I say befuddled, there's an pretty easy way in PowerShell to make a REST call. So I was kind of like, why do we need a PowerShell SDK? But sure, make it easier for people. I don't have a real big problem with that. The last release was in August, and they seem to have regular monthly releases. So that one seems fairly stable as well. Moving on, we have Java. And again, regular monthly releases. It was just released 3 days ago. So that one's pretty stable as well. Same with Go. Another language supported. I have never played really with Go very much, but isn't Hugo based on Go?
So Hugo is written in Go, and it leverages there's a templating language. There's a templating language that is kind of rooted in Go, and that's what we use for all the Hugo templates and stuff that we write for the different expressions and stuff, with a bunch of additional stuff that's made for a static site gen. But yeah, it's pretty much all based in Go. I like Go. I've played Golang. I played with Golang a bunch. I like the fact that it's it's a new-ish language that deals with new-ish tech things that we have these days, like with package managers and with cloud-based stuff. And REST calls being so common. So there's a lot of stuff baked into it that's really nice. And you don't have like all this additional cruft that just builds up where, not a negative thing, but like .NET is what, 25 some odd years old now. And so it's like there's a lot of pieces at the beginning of .NET that have come to .NET over time. So I do I don't actively use it right now, but I mean, when you compare like the Go SDK, here's a good way I like to go through and see like how interested people are in it. When you compare the Go SDK against like the TypeScript SDK or the Python or the PowerShell SDKs and tools that we have, the .NET one, it's got 763 stars on GitHub. The Go one, 286. But then when you look at like the Java one, 435. So the Java one is not as big as the .NET one, but it's bigger, like twice as big as the Go one. Ironically, or interestingly enough, the PHP one is in second at, well, sorry, you're going to talk about PHP.
I was going to just give the number, so I move on to it. That's totally fine.
The PHP one's got 645 stars, and so that's like about 100 short of what the .NET one has, but it's about 200 ahead of where Java is.
Yeah.
So it's about 50% more than Java.
I think that's interesting too. So PHP, obviously regular monthly releases released just 4 days ago. So it is active as well. I think it's interesting that that's sort of making a resurgence in the sense that PHP is not a new language. It's been around for quite a while. So it's just interesting that it's sort of making that kind of resurgence. I don't use it, so I don't have a lot to say about the language itself, but it's interesting. All right. Now to the thing that actually is different and confusing as all get out. Okay.
Can I go back on one thing?
Go. Yeah, go.
Here's an interesting thing. So I just flipped it around and just did a little sorted things a little bit differently. So if anybody's interested in how I'm doing this, if you go to like the repo or the organization that Julie mentioned, the github.com/Microsoft Graph, and if you go to the list of repositories, but if you just put in your search criteria -SDK-, which is how they name most of their stuff, that's going to filter down to just show you all the repos. Now there's a way at the bottom of that list, which is a page list. You can say view all repos or view everything, and it'll show you all 73 repositories that it found that's got SDK in the name. Some of the repos that have SDK in the name don't really apply to what we're talking about right here because some of them are used for code gen. Some of them are both the beta and the GAs, whatever. But you can then sort it by the number of stars. The .NET one is not the most popular one, interestingly enough. The .NET one is 763 stars, but just above that, that's actually number 3 on the list. Number 2 on the list is the JavaScript one at 794, so just barely above it. And then the number 1, which you just talked about.
God would be thrilled.
The PowerShell one at almost 800 stars, yet when you look at the activity, it sure looks like the PowerShell one that doesn't have as much activity on it as of late compared to what it had in the past.
Yeah, yes, I can totally see exactly what you're saying. Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, just wanted to throw that in there. This is also a good way because
that's an interesting. Yeah.
You can see a list of like not only how many people have forked it, so many people are like tweaking it, how many open issues they have, how many pull requests they have, and Spark line on commit activity, but also a little timestamp showing when it was last updated. So all the ones we're going through right now were all updated in the last 2 or 3 days. Again, September 18th, Thursday, September 18th is when we're recording this. So, recent.
Yeah. What's interesting, though, is even though it's being updated, so our next on our list is the JavaScript one. So the current GA one is the second in your list, the Microsoft SDK, or Microsoft MS Graph SDK JavaScript. That's the current GA version. It has been updated, or it says it's been updated, but the last release of it was back in September of 23.
Ooh. So okay, now I see where you're going with this. Good God, look at that.
So now we've hit 2 years.
Oh, you know what? Now I see why it's been updated. I apologize. Bad way to look at stuff I was looking at. It looks like if I just look at the first page of all the ones that have been updated, these are all automated, like the Dependabot doing this stuff.
Yeah.
So basically a BS way to look at activity.
Unfortunately.
Okay.
So I was giving you 3 days ago, like in Java and all of those, I was looking at the last release. The last release was 3 days ago, not whether there was activity on the repo or not. So just to be clear about everything I've said before.
That makes more sense. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, no problem. So, all right. So the current GA one is this JavaScript SDK. And this one, like I said, has not had a release since September of 23. So this JavaScript one and the typings are sort of tied together. When one releases, the other releases. So this is where the typings question came from to get-go. So if you go to see the JavaScript SDK, you have to go see in npm.js, it's called @Microsoft/Graph-client. That is the release of the MS Graph-SDK-JavaScript. All right. So I posted my question. I'm like, hey, and now we're at I said November, but I guess it's September. So now we're at 2 years and this thing hasn't been touched, and as far as like a release or an update goes. And I was questioning that because it really leaves people in the lurch if you're 2 years behind in your typings, and us presumably, and I mean, I know it to be true, that things are revisioning on the graph endpoints. Let's not go into versioning, although I'd like to. We'll put that aside and not talk about why we can't version the Microsoft Graph. That's just not even going to be on the table.
Let me. I do want to. I want to change what you said.
Okay.
It's not that we can't version the Microsoft Graph.
Yeah.
Okay, just leave it at that. I'll let everybody else read into that.
We cannot apparently version.
Yeah,
Microsoft Graph.
Just need to get that Microsoft Graph team that says it can't version the graph. We need to get them with the people who make Azure. Those two companies should talk to each other because they seem to do a pretty good job at Azure.
Many other companies that provide software as a service that happen to version their APIs. Any of those people.
Yeah.
All right. So
we're going to have to put that in line with all the figuring out cold fusion and the stuff that's never going to happen. Peace in the Middle East and all that stuff.
Exactly. Okay.
These are
so I put this question out there and I'm like, what is going on? And so kudos to him. A person who works at Microsoft, Vincent Briette, who was on the Graph team, who is no longer on the Graph team, works in a different area of Microsoft, let us know that the apparent replacement is going to be the MS Graph-SDK-TypeScript. However, that little puppy is still in preview. So if you go find that, and I'm just, because I was curious and I did that filter, I don't really see it.
The TypeScript one?
Not in that. Yeah, it's not even. It's in there. I'm not saying it's not, but it's not sorted in a way that I can find it easily. Anyway, the bigger point is
if you search by stars, it is on page 2, where each page looks like it's got like 25 on them. So yeah, it's only got 31 stars. So I was curious and I spent some time looking at it, and this is where things got really interesting. So they give a demo of how to use this thing, and the install included not one package, but 4 packages. So apparently the way you use this SDK is that you have to, so npm.js packages is what I'm referencing right now. You have to install the @Microsoft/MS Graph-SDK. That's 19.4 megs, by the way. Then you have to install @Azure/identity,
which is GA, has regular updates. I've talked about that previously. We'll talk about it in the future. It's one of my favorite libraries, known to man. It's essentially a abstraction layer over the top of MSAL that gives you a way to do authentication in a chained way to help you with doing CI/CD and development pipelines and all those things. Anyway, Azure Identity is the best thing since sliced bread. I love it more than life itself. Then you have to also install the @Microsoft/Kyoto-authentication-Azure package. That puppy is $107K. And then, and here's where I got confused at first. The sample shows you installing a package called @Microsoft/MS-Graph-SDK-users. And that package is 8.63 megs. And I was like, users? Why is it called users? That doesn't make any sense. So I start digging into it. And then I realize that there is a separate package for every module. There are 66 modules. So what you would have to do, let's say you wanted to get users, groups, sites, teams, messages, blah, blah, blah. You'd have like 10 to 12 packages installed, all that are absolutely friggin' giant, I might point out. I mean, again, I didn't spend the time to go and try to build something with it and then compile it and like inspect the package size to see if they're doing anything to like reduce the package sizing. But just looking at this, I'm like, why is this thing 8.63 megs? Like I just don't, I don't know. I'm just at a complete loss.
So you didn't go check and see why, right?
I kind of know. Yeah, I looked inside. So the code is generated, and there are all sorts of like the code generation functions are inside of each one of these libraries. So there's they ship the code gen in the package? It seems like it. Yeah, we started poking through it, and there's all sorts of functions in there that just don't have anything to do with the library at all. So, I mean, you got that going for you, which is nice. I don't know why. I'm not on that team, so, I have no idea why, but it's kind of like super ugly.
So it says the reason why they show you this package, or what you can use this package for, is that what it does is it adds a fluent UI for talking to that endpoint. So I think it looks like, so I understand what you're saying is that you've got one for each endpoint. So one for users, probably one for events, probably one for files. And each one of those is what's adding in the fluent API, meaning that I can like I have like a builder kind of a model where I'm doing like .user or .filter, .select, whatever. And I'm doing that throughout the entire method, but that's just like.
And that's what PMP.js does. Meanwhile, our entire library, the entire library for SharePoint, unpacked is 1.16 megs. Everything.
You need to put some TIFF files in there just to make it bigger so that you can be like, wait, they are. God, I'm sorry. I can see another episode coming anyway that we're going to be talking about something else, and I'm feeling a little bit similar to how my frustration is there. You know what I'm talking about, but.
Mm-hmm. And just for comparison's sake as well, all the graph endpoints that PMP.js supports, and I will say it isn't everything that is covered by these packages, but it is probably close to 60 or 70%. Our unpacked size is 737K. And we support selective imports. So that means that if you're not using a piece of that, you could
tree shake it out.
You tree shake it out. That's exactly
So
right.
Server side, I don't care about the size of stuff, but
100%.
client side, I want to tree shake it out so that all that dead code that I'm not using is not part of what I'm shipping in my entire project.
Right. Now, again, I did not build one of these and see if there's any cleanup, but by just inspecting the code, it doesn't appear that it does. But I didn't inspect it. I didn't do it. So I am a little bit throwing stones for something that I'm not fully educated in. But it just felt bad. I will say I don't love at all the fact that each one of the modules is a separate package. That feels clunky and like just more overhead than we really would want to have.
I 100% agree with you. I mean, I'm looking at this like immediately frustrated. First of all, there's two things I see with this one that kind of irritates me. Number one, and it may just be my bias, but I also see that reference to Kyoto. And
yeah.
I mean, Microsoft is so high on their horses about this Kyoto tool that they've built, and that's used for like code gen stuff. But I think it originated out of the Microsoft Graph team, and if I'm not mistaken, the people that were involved in building it and having it come out are now no longer on the Microsoft Graph team, the majority of them.
Yes.
I don't want to point fingers at it, but it's just like,
nope.
This is the part that irritates me about like how different teams at Microsoft think that they are going to reinvent the wheel, and they've got this great idea for like a mono repo thing or some build manager, and they're like, oh, we're going to build something that's going to fix everything. I'm like, we have really nice wheels, and we've had these nice wheels for hundreds of years. We don't need new wheels. Our wheels are fine. We don't need to optimize this wheel any more than it's already done. And so like to that, like there's a So I just saw when I saw like Kyoto and they're like, you need these three things. I'm like, I just want the Graph SDK. That's all I really want. Like, oh, well, you need this, this, and this. I'm like, well, okay, Azure Identity, I get that. That's going to help me with my authentication stuff. But why do I need Kyoto for this too? That doesn't make sense. And I know somebody's going to have some really logical answer to me, but it's like, take a step back, stop thinking like an engineer and think like a consumer who's going to use what you're giving them. And this is the part where I look at this going, why do I need this extra stuff that I might not? Do I really need this? It's just it just feels over
analogous to that in PMP.js, which I do know well, is we create behavioral wrappers for things like MSAL. So it's a way that you can glue the two pieces together, right? So you have the Fluent API, and in the case of PMP.js, we do something called timelines, which is essentially like the event model for making a RESTful call, right? Like you pre-authorize, you initialize, you fetch, you unpackage the JSON and parse it, and then you send the data back, right? So you have a timeline of events that you could have happen. And what you need to be able to do is bind the authentication step into that timeline. And so you definitely need a wrapper of some kind to say, okay, well, I'm going to use MSAL, and how does MSAL and getting that auth token and, maintaining an auth token, knowing when it's, it needs to be refreshed, all of that stuff. How does that happen? It's a very small, tiny bit of code in PMP.js, but you do need that wrapper. So for example, if you're doing PMP.js and you're doing a Node.js solution, and let's say you were only going to go against Microsoft Graph, you'd need the @PMP/Graph library. You'd need the wrapper for Azure Identity that I built, and then you need Azure, and that takes a dependency on @Azure Identity. So you don't separately have to install @Azure Identity, but you're essentially getting it when you install the wrapper. So I get why you need a wrapper. It's just a lot of packages.
Yeah, that's the part that gets under my skin with this. Was just like, I just feel like this just isn't. It just doesn't.
And why not make it a dependency? Why make it a separate install? If that Kyoto-authentication.azure is the thing to do authentication, then just take a dependency on Azure Identity. Don't make it a separate install.
I agree. I completely agree. I mean, make it part of it, and then just go through and make it to where it's going to be friendly for tree shaking to get rid of that stuff. That should be something transparent.
Exactly.
Like the same way with Fluent UI. If I go get the Fluent UI React library today, I don't want to have to figure out I want drop-down controls, and I also want navigation controls, and I also want this, and I have to go get the core. And then once you get the core, then you can go through and get these two little utilities. And then once you get those, then you figure out what package you want for like these other controls and go get that too. Like, no. I want to install Fluent UI. I want to get all the React controls. And I will import the ones that I need in my project. And the ones that I don't import, I don't need those. And if I'm using Webpack, it'll only pull in the stuff that I need and shake out all the junk, all the other stuff that I'm not using, the dead code, not junk. Yep. Somebody else might use it, but in my project, I don't need it. But it keeps it simpler for me as a developer. I know what I'm consuming.
Yeah, I don't care what size it is on disk. I care what size it is when it's bundled, assuming we're talking about for the web, right?
For client side, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, and just the last point that I had to make sort of is that they do still talk about and support Kyoto. So you made this point about them still using it, even though that team is not really there anymore, but they still do suggest that you build your own client library with Kyoto that does the imports of the packages that you need. So you can still do that. And that is linked in the official documentation still. So I'm assuming they're still recommending that, and that is up to date, but maybe that's not necessarily the thing that I should be thinking it is.
So what's your take on this? I'm trying to keep my mouth shut here, but like, what is your take on?
Oh, I think I've been very clear on what my take is. This is a hot friggin' mess, and the fact, well, it's a hot friggin' mess from many places. That we're 2 years out. We're 2 years out with no changes to the official GA library while they are on preview 70 of this new thing. Like, can you finish already? Like sometime? Anything longer than, in my opinion, if you are going to build something new, that is fine, but you can't keep it in preview and then not touch what's GA when that thing that is GA is out of date so horrifically, right? Not that it's just fine and it's not broken, but it's out of date because the typings no longer match. And I'm assuming there's probably endpoints that aren't in there that need to be in there. After 2 years, there's got to be some stuff in the beta endpoints that are not included, at least from beta, but also from V1. I know some stuff has moved to V1 in the past 2 years. So that just doesn't, it's just not good. Well, I'll quote our mutual friend who said, the developer ecosystem, the Microsoft developer ecosystem is not being well supported. And this is pointing directly at how that developer ecosystem is not being supported.
The Microsoft 365 developer ecosystem.
Yes,
I don't want to say Microsoft ecosystem.
Did I not? Oh, yeah, I thought I said Microsoft. Yeah. Microsoft 365 developer ecosystem. Sorry.
Right. And this goes back to like the frustration. I guess we were talking about pre-show, a little bit of that stuff. I don't have anything to contradict or really to like debate with you on any of that stuff. Like, to me, again, same thing. Like, this is ridiculous that we need an episode like this to dig into it, to have a better idea of what the story looks like. And I still walk away from it just going, God, this is frustrating. And this is confusing to be able to grok all this stuff. So all I know now is like going, well, I knew that there was some stuff going on. I knew it was ticking Julie off. I trust Julie, so I'm going to defer to her on this. And when when we were talking about doing this episode, I was like, I got an idea if you don't want to run this show. And you're like, no, I got an idea. And I was like, I saw what you were doing. I'm like, cool, I'm going to learn some more stuff about this. Finally going to dig into it. Now I'm glad that I didn't do the same thing because I'm just walking away from this a little bit more frustrated. Now, I'm going to throw one more thing on top of this. These aren't the only guys that are building a Graph SDK.
Right. Oh, right.
The Teams AI library guys that are the V2 Teams AI library guys, they are also building their own Graph SDK inside the Teams AI library. They're building one. There's 3 packages that they have. There's at Microsoft /teams.graph, at Microsoft teams.graph-endpoints, and at Microsoft teams.graph-endpoints-beta. It's like, why? Like, why are you guys doing? And they gave me their explanation, and I'm like, I hear you. And he goes, it makes sense, doesn't it? And I'm like, no, I understand what you said, but it doesn't make sense what you said. Like, I comprehend. I speak the same language. I got what you said, and I'm still just going, where did this make sense? How did this make sense? And if this is not a reason to like, I know you and I've talked about this on in ad nauseum, and I know we've talked about it in other, like in our previous show that we were doing together, the code Cloud Dev Clarity.
Cloud Clarity, yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
The CDC. Actually, I think that whatever. I'm not going to do that.
We need to drop that one now.
Yeah. We're going to drop that like the vaccine. So sorry, couldn't resist. But I prefer not to use an SDK. I prefer to go straight to the REST endpoints for things, right? I'm looking at this going, my God, thank you very much for helping me prove my point, guys. Appreciate it, because this is confusing AF. And this is complicated as AF. And I understand SDKs give me some value to it, but this is the argument that I have with it going, I now am going to have to buy in to not you, Julie, not anybody listening, unless the Graph team is listening, which they shouldn't be. They should be working on this stuff and trying to get it done. But if I don't, I'm having to buy into what their rationalization is for all of this and this whole structure, how they're building all their different SDKs and stuff. And it's like, you know what? I know how to talk to a REST API, and the value that you bring to the table with your SDKs, all of this additional complexity, I have to ask myself, you know what? If I need to do like that long running middleware thing that you guys do with the Graph, or the automatic retries, and when I get 429s, I'm like, I think I might just go look at your code and I might just build that into my own project instead of me going through having to buy into all the stuff that you've done.
Full disclosure, I used to write that boilerplate code myself. And then I didn't use PnPJS until, probably about a year before I joined working on the PnPJS. So, I hear you. I used to do it myself, but it's a lot to move from project to project to project. And when you have the collective knowledge of the team we have put together, I feel like, and this is obviously, I'm in it, so I'm going to say nice things about it, but I think that the internals of how PnPJS work are pretty friggin' brilliant. And it's impressive, and it does all of those things so that you don't have to think about it and you don't have to worry about it. And you have the collective knowledge of when something's broken, the collective knowledge of everyone sort of coming together and saying, hey, this thing didn't work. And, I have this scenario where it didn't work out or whatever, and we can then address it. And so that it is better for everyone, sort of the idea of, raise the tide, raising all boats idea. And so I believe strongly in the SDK that I helped build that's free and, community supported. But I don't believe in the Graph SDKs at all. I sort of saw that writing on the wall when I was already working on PnPJS, and I didn't like what the original Graph JavaScript library, or Microsoft Graph client library was. I didn't like how it authenticated. I didn't like how you had to instantiate it. It felt too opinionated. And so I didn't sort of jump in. And now I'm even more glad than ever that I didn't do that. So, whatever. I'm in agreement with you.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It really is unfortunate. But I mean, and it's going to be curious to see where these things go too, with like how they've had staffing. The post that you referenced on LinkedIn that you started, that Vincent jumped in and commented on. I think it's worth our listeners, if you're involved in this stuff, it's worth going to listen to it, because make sure you go read all of Vincent's stuff that he said, because he also talks a little bit about the staffing impacts that Microsoft has done on the Graph team. And I mean, frankly, just the stuff that's publicly known related to that. I look at this whole thing going, how closely am I going to follow what they're doing at Graph SDK? Because how many people are working on it? How many people will be working on it? Is this another group that somebody is actually doing this inside of the Graph team? And if they're gone, then we're going to have, hey, look, I've got an idea how to do this. I don't know.
I find it very concerning that another team in Microsoft is building their own Graphs SDK. That just goes to show that if internally in Microsoft they don't even trust it, why would I trust it?
I will. The only pushback I'm going to give you on that one is that I don't think that that's the reason why. I don't think that that's the takeaway I have of the Teams AI library guys. I think that that's a.
I'm not arguing that. I'm saying that's the optics of it, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure that they have good, valid reasons. I'm not, I'm sure that there's some thinking there that makes sense to them. You know what I mean?
That's okay. That's the one statement I'll agree with you with that one. There's some thinking that they have that makes sense to them. Cool.
Totally. But it reads from the outside like, I've got this library that's not being maintained anymore. I've got this group going to make their own. It's in 2 years. We're in preview 70. Pretty much this isn't a priority. Devs aren't a priority. Guess I really shouldn't support this. Or, it just doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel like it's a priority.
Disagree with anything you just said. I'm disappointed. I'm frustrated. But yeah, it is what it is.
And then you move on.
Yes, you start drinking, move on to the next level, and then you're just like, all right, I guess this is the way things are going to be. But
the way I've been handling it is just make my own. I feel like that's been my answer. I joined the PMP Jazz team. Stefan and I start H2O. When I'm too frustrated by what Microsoft's providing, I just make my own.
Yeah. There's something to be said for that. There's totally something to be said for that. So anyway.
What do you think?
Well, I think it's we've gone longer than we said we were going to go,
yes,
but we still have picks to do, and it's 10 o'clock in the morning, and even though I got to drive to the airport after this discussion, I think I actually want to have a cocktail. But
you can have one when you get to the airport.
Yeah,
because then you'll be flown, and you won't have to navigate anymore. All right, Andrew, since it's my show, what's your pick first?
I'm really excited about your pick, but my pick is a fun one. I came across this article on my favorite site to find fun, techie kind of picks. I won't tell anybody what that is because that's my little sweet sauce that I've got that I used to use with the Microsoft Cloud Show. Some dude wrote an article about an old 1986 Macintosh that he had that was like collecting dust. He had found it, tried to brought it back to life, but it was still just taking up a bunch of space over in the corner. The screen was a little wonky. And he's like, you know what? I got an idea of something I can do. And you'd probably ask, why would you do that? And it's like, because you can. So what he built was the Rackintosh. And the Rackintosh is a rack mounted with, if you dig into the stuff that he wrote about it, he even did the old 1986 style like print magazine article and sales clip that you can get from like a thing. It's a 1U rack mounted 1986 Macintosh. He calls it the Rackintosh Plus. The front of it, it's got that, the tall version of the old Mac Apple mouse. So it looks like a phone jack, but it looks taller. He's got there's an on-off toggle button. He's got, if you want to use a mouse too, you can plug in a serial cable, and on the back of it, there's also a serial cable. There's a way that you can plug in an HDMI port, so you take care of that, take care of the screen issue that you may have. There's a way that you can plug in other peripherals. If you have a modem, like a telephone modem, you can plug that into it. And he's even got a spot where he is a floppy drive emulator where you can drop in like an SD card, and it connects it like on the floppy drive. So
fantastic.
Yeah. So he went through, he did this. It was pretty cool. He did the drawings, a little bit of CNC stuff.
I love the drawing. I love the drawing, like the hand. That's very fun.
Sorry, he
and
didn't do the CNC
panel.
Yeah, right. It's great when he said it. He said, when you need to do something like this, you want like a CNC machine to make, to cut all the metal and stuff for you. But if you don't have one of those, then what you do is you use paper, pencils, and markers down and painter's tape. And then you get out your Dremel with a bunch of new little saws on your Dremel, and you just Dremel the crap out of it and make your little holes. So it's pretty cool.
That's fun. That's
awesome. So that's mine. Very cool. How about you, Julie? What is your pick? I know what your pick is.
Yeah. So we've been talking about this. I have a feeling this is going to be, if I'm not talking about cooking, I'm going to be talking about this podcast because it's become my new, when there is not a cooking video to watch, because I absorb cooking documentaries and cooking shows so fast that I run out of material. Like there's no new material to watch. So I've started bringing in the Diary of a CEO podcast into my repertoire. And that's what I end up sitting and watching it at night sometimes. And this one, though, I ended up listening to because I was in the car long enough. And this one was awesome. It was so interesting to just listen to the perspective. It was two guests, Dr. Daniel Amen and Dr. Terry Sinjowski, I think. Dr. Amen is a brain health expert, apparently, who does a lot of brain scans and does a lot of research and he's a trained psychologist. And then Dr. Terry Sinjowski is a computational neuroscientist. I think he was a physicist originally. And he is the co-creator of the Boltzmann machine with Geoffrey Hinton. Anyway, that's a neural network that laid the foundation for AI. So he had these two guys on, and essentially the one thing about these episodes, the Diary CEO episodes, is they're very long and windy. You know, whatever the catchy title is that his team decides to latch onto and make a little 20-second soundbite about is not indicative of what the entire episode goes over. So the catchy title, the clickbait is brain experts warning, watch this before using Chat GPT again. Shocking new discovery. Well, that's overstated. But what it really is about is how do these two experts think about using Chat GPT in light of the MIT research that using Chat GPT or using LLMs sort of makes you dumber, right? That concern that if kids start using it and adults are using it, that they're sort of getting dumber, and what is there, what should we think about with that? And so they address that, and the TLDR is essentially, if you're using an LLM as if it were, and I don't mean this to sort of sound like a joke, but as if it were a human that you were interacting with, right? So use it to help your thinking, to elevate your own thinking, and don't use it to do things for you without interacting with it, right? That was sort of the premise. And I'm paraphrasing down a whole bunch of material, an hour and a half worth of material into that one statement. So it is absolutely worth a watch. To just sort of hear how AI will maybe affect you and affect your brain, and what you should be careful about and what you should think about. In the end, they do talk about kids and AI. They talk about brain health in general. They talk about what you can do for brain health. So there's a lot of information in this episode, and I just thought it was super good and really interesting.
Yeah, I listened to this. I started listening to this on a run and a couple of weeks ago, and then I finished my run, and my cooldown was much longer than it normally is because I found I couldn't stop listening to this, and I actually went back and I watched it as well because I wanted to have a visualization of the conversation. But you don't need to watch it; you can just listen to it because there's really not much visuals to it. It's just watching talking heads. Well edited though. This was one of, if not the best discussions, rational discussions on using AI that I've heard. The only thing I want to add to it, some stuff that you said. So I don't disagree with anything you said. Big +1 on all that stuff. I loved the part when they started talking about brain health and showing that just by using ChatGPT to do work for you, or using AI to do work for you and replacing your mental work, was immediately like an accelerator to early onset dementia. even though we've only been using it for like 2 or 3 years in scale, or in the consumer world, we've been using it in 2 or 3 years since ChatGPT came out. Then I thought that was really interesting. And they talk about like the brain scans. And one guy's like you said, one guy's like a expert at like brain scans, or that's all he does is brain scans and look at see what the difference is and the impact is with people. I thought that discussion was fascinating. Mm-hmm. The part about kids, the part about what are they called, SSRIs, Prozac stuff. That was fascinating.
Oh yeah, that was fascinating too. I had forgotten about that section. Yep.
And that's part of ChatGPT discussion, part an SSRI, part a brain health thing. All of it was just really good. I have a deep interest in this stuff because it's dementia, Alzheimer's runs in my family, and watching how fast it can impact somebody with someone very close to me. The one that I am one of the things I absolutely loved about this episode though is what you said, and I really want to call this one piece out. It's when he talked about how you're using it, and they don't take the position of AI sucks, ChatGPT, chatbots suck. They don't take that position at all. They take it as, hey, look, there is a way that you can use these that's not good, but there's a way that you can use these that's really good. And it also, like one of the guys was talking about and shared how of the experiments and the work they were doing about how to use something like ChatGPT to fight back against dementia or early onset dementia. And just being able to, that's one of the coolest aspects to it for me as well. So it was a very fair and balanced, hate using that term these days, but it was a very fair and balanced discussion on it about the good and the bad, and then how they would recommend as brain health people, how they would recommend using it. And as somebody who love using AI to get more stuff done, but somebody who's also very sensitive to that, if it's helping brain health, it's not replacing what's going on in my head, but helping me not only to augment it, to challenge it, and then also to help me replace stuff that I'm having to, like grunt work that I'm doing with my fingers. That's where I am on the whole AI stuff. So I thought I agree with you. I didn't realize that this is the one you picked until I clicked through. I'm like, oh hell yeah, this is one of my favorite episodes from Diary of a CEO. It's really good. Diary really of a CEO. I say that too fast and it sounds like you got a CEO who's got bowel issues.
Agreed.
So good pick, Julie.
Cool. Thanks. All right. Well, I think we did it.
We did do it. And
any final statements?
No, we always say we could probably knock this out in 30 minutes and we end up doing twice as long. Yeah. So, but I always enjoy the conversation.
So great. Yeah, me too. Awesome. All right. Great job.
Did you like this episode? Please like and share it with your friends. We are on YouTube, Blue Sky, and LinkedIn. All the links are in the video description. If you have a question, head to codedeploygo.live where you can send it in. Also, sign up for our mailing list on our site at codedeploygo.live to learn about future episodes, opportunities for listeners, and get the show notes from each episode sent straight to your inbox. We'll be back with another episode in 2 weeks.